Every time I open up my inventory recently, it's, oh, hey, Beast, hey, what's all these purple swords? Why are your stab swords purple? What are you doing? All right, let me explain myself. So this is going to be a pretty math-heavy video, but I'm going to get you to the fun stuff right now. There was a long time ago, I'm probably getting the history wrong, but all I know is that the Nightcleave, for a while back in the day, was able to get 4 attack speed perks. It's my understanding if you have a Founder's Nightcleave schematic, then your old copy may just be able to have 4 attack speed perks. New ones don't have it. I'm not sure when the changeover happened, but it's not available anymore. These were obtained to me. These ones down here were from Schnemli. I think he's offering to craft for people in Discord. Do not hound him, okay? Be very respectful. You can ask in Discord. We have a crafting role. Link down below if you guys want to be very polite. Maybe somebody could hook you up with one of these. Be very generous. Nobody has to do this for you, and I don't want to bug anybody. That's why I'm not actually going to disclose the name of the person who gave me these ones, because Schnemli, unfortunately, has a Sunbeam copy, and Sunbeam is generally preferred. I still recommend it for Spectral Blade and the Ravager. These are very strong weapons that should be Sunbeam. It actually does work out to be perfectly fine, even with the triple attack speed Luna builds and all that. We're going to get into that later. But for the Nightcleaves, you are swinging so fast. 0.2 swing speed means you're swinging 5 times a second. That Bright Core, bringing it from 0.2 to 0.8, or 0.18, matters a lot. That does change the damage. We're going to show all of that in a little bit. And I found a guy who knows a guy who supercharged his and made it Bright Core and was willing to craft me, not anybody else, but he was willing to craft me 5 of each element, and that is what we have here today. I will not be disclosing his name. You know who you are. Thank you so much. He even stuck around in stream and helped me a lot with the math that we're going to be disclosing here, and he doesn't want his name disclosed because he's going to get hounded, and I understand why. He has an extremely rare and sought-after weapon. I will go as far as to say, with Paleo Luna, this is the best highest damage melee in the entire game, and it's not even obtainable, which is very unfortunate. Now, before we get into the spreadsheet, I'm going to ramble on about why this is so strong, just to give an excuse to show some gameplay. 4x attack speed obviously means we're swinging, 0.18 swing speed with the Bright Core version, and with Paleo Luna adding 9% of our health to every single swing, our damage per second gets about 500,000 very quickly. So long as we keep the health up, it's insane. Once you get the Battle Beat active and or Subwafers or Fumble or whatever, totally rocking out hero you're running, even with Blast in the Past, all we need is Rockin' Riff to up the attack speed. That gets very, very fast. And in fact, with Rockin' Riff active, we're getting close to 600,000 DPS with this weapon. It's incredible. I brought this up on stream, and holy shit was a common response from everybody in chat because it was just ridiculous. I was melting 250 power level smashers in a full squad. It was disgusting. Absolutely nothing survived. Only a mini boss made us wait a little bit, and he was a tank, so that made a little more sense. These weapons are incredibly fun to use. I wish I could craft them. The durability is way too short, but yeah, now that you've seen this thing perform and just what it's capable of, let's get into some of the math involved with it. So you can see what we're comparing to. I actually did a comparison between the Spectre Blade and the Ravager, link down below. That video gets way in depth and what these numbers mean and the ins and outs of which one's better. Those two weapons are going to work just fine, and they're going to slay everything in your regular game. We're going to talk about the Nightcleave, the for funsies weapon. So the 122 power level Sunbeam copy that Schnemli gave me is about 483,000 DPS, which is monstrous. You can see that right out of the gate with the quote-unquote undesirable copy, it is still neck and neck with the Ravager and the Spectral Blade with a full-on loadout, and that's just the bottom tier. Now, with the Bright Core copy, you can see we just get a little more DPS. It's better, but it's not that much better. It's close, but it's still technically better Bright Core, but the Sunbeam one is absolutely completely fine. It's really not that big of a deal. It gets a little more interesting with the supercharged copy. It goes up just a little bit, like 15,000 DPS. When things get really interesting is when you've got Rockin' Riff active. Now, for some of you who don't know what Rockin' Riff is, let's show Battle Beat here. In fact, I'm going to remove the code Mista because that might get in the way at some point. Battle Beat here activates Rockin' Riff after 10 eliminations in 9 seconds. Sometimes it activates a little sooner. It's a little buggy. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Point is, when it's active, your melee swing speed goes up by 32%. We crunch the numbers, and that brings your attack speed down from a 0.18 to a 0.16. That might not sound very significant, and that math might not add up to you guys. I can get into the thick of it. In fact, I will real quick. Let's do that real quick. So the reason that your speed is going from 0.18 to 0.16, that's not truly a 30% improvement, and that's because of the way attack speed activates. In fact, what's happening here is we've already got 4 attack speed perks. So our weapon at 0.18 swing speed is already experiencing a 120% attack speed bonus from a base swing speed of, I believe, 0.41. I might be getting that number wrong. Doesn't matter. My point is the jumping off point is quite high. So what Battle Beat is doing is changing our bonus from 120% attack speed to 152% attack speed. So it's not... You know, it's a very tiny buff, but it matters. You can see, in fact, when I pull up the sheet again here, the damage is going from 532,000 DPS all the way up to 598,000, just on the cusp of 600,000 DPS. But as you can see, it doesn't stop there because damage is applied. And that's where this number is a little more conceptual. I'm not 100% certain that this number is strictly accurate. Applying the damage was a little tricky because the 20% from the element was in play, and that might have screwed things up a little bit, so take that with a grain of salt, but 650,000 DPS sounds about right because, as you can see, it adds a 50% damage bonus on top of the 32%. And as I explained earlier, damage is not where we're getting our damage from. I know that sounds weird. The weapon damage is not what's bonusing, it's the Paleo Luna bonus. And of course, all of this gameplay was with a supercharged Luna. It's with a supercharged stabs worth. It only makes sense. So that's where this build gets a little tricky. I've got anatomy lessons from the Ravager Spectral Blade video. If you were to truly want to maximize this weapon, I would still suggest Fumble, if I can find him real quick here. That is just to double up because Battle Beat only activates after 10 kills. If you want to get Rockin Riff active as much as possible, I recommend running 2 of these. I think it makes a lot of sense. If you think there's a better option, you go for it. It's your build if you even have this weapon. I phrase most of my videos as a tutorial, but I've forgotten in the middle of recording how rare this weapon is, so it's more of just for fun. I like to run 2 of these just to make sure it's active as much as possible. In game, I find that to be really useful, and I have never stressed coconuts more in my entire life. You need it. You need it. This whole build is about attack speed and health. Your damage is coming from the health from Paleo Luna. In fact, I can easily show just how much she's doing because of the way Cthulhu made this calculator. Thank you to her for doing that. You can see the weapon DPS is abysmal. 116,000 is basically nothing. That is lower than the worst weapons I've ever calculated with this thing. But with Paleo Luna's bonus, adding 416,000 damage, she is essentially 80% of our damage output. So you absolutely need to have that health as high as possible, as much as possible. This HP is clocked in, I think, at the number that I had with Paleo Luna. This is going to change person to person. That's why it's a variable we can change. I'm at 830,000 now. Yeah, I think changing Fumble and Whiteout Fiona, it doesn't matter. It's close enough. It's very close to the true number here. In fact, if Luna was in support, our damage would plummet to essentially half of what it was before. It's incredible how much of a difference she makes. So that pretty much wraps it up, honestly. The Nightcleave is a very, very interesting weapon. It is indicative of what can happen at the extremes of Paleo Luna attack speed. There are, of course, you can see them right here, options with the Spectre Blade and the Ravager, where you have 3 times attack speed. The Stabsworth itself, the legendary copy, can have 2 attack speed perks, and now that I'm 137, I bet this number will be closer to 370, 380,000 DPS. It's really, really close to like what the other better swords can get. I say better because they do more damage, but if you don't have the Storm King's Ravager and you missed the Spectre Blade event, which I hope you didn't, because as of release of this video, the Spectre Blade just returned, so you should definitely grab it if it's in the shop. If you're watching this in the future, it might not be in the shop. That's completely fine. The Stabsworth is a base game weapon that's available all the time, so if you want a it's funny because it's a legendary copy, but if you want a budget version of these Founders Nightcleaves, you could just use the regular Stabsworth III. If I can just scroll down to it, I've got 3 copies right here. Double attack speed damage, and it has Affliction, which is really, really strong right now. So while it can't quite compare to the Nightcleave there, it's still something that's more accessible to everybody, us common folk. If the Founders weapons ever come back in Llamas and the Nightcleave is ever capable of getting 4 attack speed perks again, I will make a video on that immediately. I'll pin it on this video if I remember. And that's it for me, though. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys want to use code Mista, feel free to support the channel. Videos like this take a ton of work. Check out the Spectre Blade versus Ravager. Should be on the video on the screen at the end here at some point. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And then...